Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. I have a number of things to touch on today, so instead of shooting one long one, I'm keeping track of some things on the computer here while I talk. But matter of fact, I'm getting messages from friends of mine who are all over town, telling me that I guess Cabela's is out of a lot of the ammo, the 223, 5.56, 9 millimeters, and that type of stuff. Somebody else said that Academy is running low on ammo and guns. So this thing is spreading over, and what a lot of people don't realize is that a emergency and preparedness is a multifaceted situation. People think about this as medical. The people who think about it as medical think about it only as medical. We're going to get to that in a second, and and don't realize that that the cascading effects are what we also have to worry about. Anyway, this one's going to be about the medical aspect of this. I had occasion in the last couple of days to meet with a number of people from a couple of different organizations, medical organizations, hospitals. Um, in both the physician um, sector and the administrative sector. Uh, I'm sorry. I was surprised at what I discovered, and I'm sorry to have to pass this on. Um, and I can't go into a lot of detail. I mean, I am restricted by NDAs and certain legal and ethical restrictions on what I can talk about. So, and there's no real reason to go into particulars, and I'm just going to give you the generalities that I came away from after my discussions with them. Um, and that is that regardless of the assurances that we have that major healthcare delivery systems are prepared, they are not. They are reactive as opposed to proactive, and reactive to things that aren't necessarily up to date. I was amazed at the outdated information that I was running into. And when I presented the latest figures from NIH and CDC, they were unaware of them. When I talked about the latest projections uh, for sickness and mortality rates, they were unaware of those. Um, and I'm not. I don't mean to target these people individually. They're fine people as individuals. I mean, as far as I know them, but but they are operating within the bubble of their organizational construct, and so they're dealing with the information that they've been given, and they don't spend their days like I do or some of you probably do, and that's looking at the news and seeing what really is going on across the world. They're busy. They have their jobs, their high speed jobs. They have a lot of responsibility, and then they have their personal lives to deal with, and they don't spend the time that a lot of us do looking at how this is going around the world. So they're really the people that we need to be on top of this the most. Sadly, are not. And I was really surprised. They're receiving protocols for those who present to for care are they're confused about them, and I had occasion to witness that myself. They're doing their best, and they're all well-meaning, and they're trying to do what they think is right, but they're simply not up on best practices. Hopefully they'll get there someday, but we need them there now, and they're not there. So my advice, like for anything, and it's advice that they give people concerning the flu when they come in, and that is uh, drink plenty of fluids and get some rest and uh, and go home. There's not a lot that can be done on this. Now with this coronavirus, there are some things. I mean, if it's serious enough, you need to get into a hospital because there are some. And that was another thing that I was surprised to hear amongst many of the medical field. they still, many of them think that it's nothing more than a cold or, the flu or something like that. So, and I was the only one, believe it or not, who was there with an N95 mask. The rest are still wearing surgical masks, and in some cases surgical masks with a face shield. And I explained to them that that wasn't going to do them any good. Um, and they were surprised when I explained to them that it had been shown that it was essentially airborne because it can remain in the air for a good amount of time. And so, if people are coughing and they've got it and it's floating around in the air, as it drifts down behind these masks that do not seal like N95s or goggles, they're in danger of contracting. And they were surprised at that. Pretty soon, I've heard that there will be, I've heard from a couple of hospitals, there will be restricted access, probably beginning in the next day or two. Um, and what that will mean is that many of the entrances are going to be locked out. There will be security checkpoints at the doors where people's temperatures will be taken, and they will go through a process of answering questionnaires, as to their health and their travels and things like this. And a couple of more restricted. One I even heard in the area will have one entrance with essentially up to 6 security officers there, and these aren't your, rent-a-cop types. No offense to anybody like that, but most of these are retired police officers. So they're serious folks, and that this one hospital, I was told, has a protocol that when anybody comes in, they're going to have to answer the questions, have their temperature taken, and man, I am just getting bombarded by texts here and information. I'm sorry if I seemed like my mind's wandering. I'll get back to them all in a minute. That they will have the person said wash their hands. I don't know how that could be unless they have a portable sink there, but they're going to have to somehow clean their hands in front of the security officers before they're admitted into the hospital. Here again, having a temperature. Now, nobody, if you have a temperature, you shouldn't go visit anybody in a hospital anyway. Now, if you have one, you need to, it depends. Most of us, when we have a temperature, when we have a fever, we, stay at home and it does what it's supposed to do, and we get over it, right? But if it concerns you, certainly, if it's too high as an adult, particularly, go into the hospital or to your doctor. But anyway, how this is going to affect, and this is another thing that I asked them, I said, how is this going to be effective? We know that a person can be asymptomatic for quite a while and still be infectious, and then we know that during the whole term of the situation, when they're symptomatic, they can infect others. And then we now have read that up to 37 days after they become asymptomatic again, they are still infectious. So how is taking a temperature one time there going to guard against any of this? And the answer is not. Now here again, I'm sure these people are doing the best they can, but I can tell by our discussions, and I can tell by the questions that are asked and the way that they're approaching it, this is coming more from a marketing than a medical standpoint. So that's the latest on that. And I do, as I talk to these people, and there were a couple who were aware, but for the most part, most of them are not. And as I talked to them, and the ones who I could see were paying attention to me, they were becoming more and more and more concerned. And I mentioned to you the other day, I think, excuse me, that a friend of my wife's had talked to a virologist over at the main teaching hospital here, and they had expressed great concern about this. And termed it as scary. So the latest figures out of the CDC and NIH are particularly concerning. Realize that we're going to be experiencing lockdowns at hospitals. And that's probably just the first step to some other lockdowns and some other restrictions that we might see. I'm going to get into that in a minute. I'm going to stop this here and then shoot another one that'll deal a little bit more with the emergency declarations and concerns that we're going to probably see come about. So, anyway, that's going to be it for this. Realize that that really you need to be responsible for understanding this coronavirus, getting the information in hand, knowing when to take yourself for medical care. You know, and don't be irresponsible by keeping yourself away from it, but don't go in there with the slightest cough or whatever, because you're simply going to be exposing yourself to a lot of other potential problems that may not have yet been tightened down. Okay. So that's it for this one. I'm going to sign off here, upload this, and then I'll be back in a few minutes with another one. And I'll talk to you then. Bye bye.